So I will start with introducing about Technip Energies. Thank you, Brian, for the kind words. Very proud to be part of a company that has been in the chemical transformation world for so long, especially in the hydrogen world for 50 years. Throughout this journey, we have seen different trends, developed different solutions, adapted to market needs, especially with low carbon hydrogen. And I'm really excited to share what we see the future of hydrogen is, how we are tackling it, and also, most important, the people behind that innovation it takes to tackle a new market, new needs, diverse market needs, as we see in the case of hydrogen. So, quick introduction about Technip Energies. We are an engineering and technology company, very focused on project delivery. We have 65 years of delivering the most complex, unique, large-scale, first-of-a-kind projects. How do we do that? We have our own suite of technologies. We have a lot of depth with engineering and project delivery. We have a global workforce of around 16,000 people to provide the proximity to our clients, but also the flexibility and expertise across the globe. From the 16,000 people, we have around 1,600 right here in US. I come from our Houston center, which is the main execution center for projects. We also have a center of excellence for hydrogen in Claremont, California, and then our R&D lab in Boston. That's where the innovation and magic happens, and that is where these first-of-a-kind projects are enabled that shape the history of chemical transformation of hydrogen and everything energy transition. So a little bit about our hydrogen heritage. For more than 5 decades, Technip Energies has been involved in almost 300 projects, 280 on the blue hydrogen side, around 80 references on green hydrogen side. On the blue hydrogen, I am very proud to say that already 50 of those or more, and counting, employ carbon capture to further reduce the carbon footprint. While energy transition has gotten a lot of focus after the Paris Agreement and in recent years with incentives, this has been the core of who we are. This is the right thing to do. It reduces cost, reduces emissions, is better for environment and people, and that is who we are. So we are taking all that experience and putting it now towards some of these newer projects, which I'm happy to share about. Before that, let's do a quick refresher on hydrogen. It's a 100-year-old molecule. More than 100 million tons of it are made and used every year. That is made in abundance because hydrogen is the most abundant element in the world, in the universe, right? The sun is hydrogen and helium, practically. However, hydrogen is very reactive, so it is logged in either through hydrocarbons, like methane or natural gas, or through water. So traditionally, gray hydrogen has been made from natural gas. How do we do that? By steam methane reforming of the natural gas into conventional gray hydrogen. This has been used primarily for its chemical characteristics and mostly in oil refineries, ammonia, and methanol. While this has been the backbone of the chemical industry, it does release, say, 10 kg CO2 per every kg of hydrogen, right? In recent times, everybody is looking to reduce that carbon footprint. How do we do that? We add carbon capture to existing plants and then also to new greenfield hydrogen plants. So that brings us to blue hydrogen, which is essentially steam methane reforming or another natural gas-based hydrogen reforming process with a carbon capture. That would give you up to 95%, 99% in some cases of CO2 reduction, which is pretty awesome, right? Especially for existing assets like Gulf of Mexico refineries, chemical industry right here in our backyard. So that has been the early stage project announcements that you might have seen. And then there is the zero carbon way, which is essentially taking the water, applying electrical current to it, and splitting the water in hydrogen and oxygen. So you do have to do a lot of gaseous processing after that, but that is called green hydrogen. Now, in addition to this, there are all kinds of other methods to produce hydrogen. In Asia, in China, India, coal gasification is widely used still for hydrogen generation. There is a lot of talk, as I'm sure we will hear in the next 2 days, about the emission intensity of the electrons that is used to split the water to make green hydrogen. So that leads us, if it's from nuclear, then it's pink or purple. If it's from the grid, which means it's a mix of renewable and conventional fossil fuel sources, then it's gold. And then you have white hydrogen, which we believe is naturally occurring hydrogen, whether if it's available in abundant quantities in nature, which can be extracted in an economic fashion, there is still a lot of research going on it. And then turquoise hydrogen is very similar to using natural gas and reforming, but the end product is, instead of gaseous CO2, which requires storage inside the earth, right, for a geological requirement for 100 years, which has its own engineering opportunities, you just have solid carbon. And that is easier to put away, per se, or use in applications. However, the economics and the scale are still being worked on, right? So for most announcements you see, we will focus on the left circle, which is your 3 main types of hydrogen. Now let's talk about the market. As we said, hydrogen has been used for about 5 decades, just based on Technip's history, right? One interesting fact I'm very proud of is 1/3 of existing global capacity for hydrogen today has been designed and worked on by Technip Energies. That's the heritage we carry, and that's the experience we want to bring as we untangle all the new requirements for this old but new industry. Like we said, for feedstock, you have essentially chemical, you have materials where hydrogen is used for its chemical properties. Something to note here is that most of the projects here will be natural gas based. Another thing to note is initial projects could be primarily brownfield, right? So you have different requirements essentially that this set of applications come with. Then let's look at some other sectors as well, just to show how unique each project, each sector needs are, and how you need unique tailored solutions to be able to make these projects viable. Brian mentioned trucks, right? So let's look at that, right? Truck refueling with hydrogen has to be distributed. Typically, distributed means you need local solar or onshore wind in small capacity, right? So that means your feedstock will be renewables. Your scale will be much lower, right? And most of these are obviously greenfield because this is a new market, right? So that requires a specific set of solution that will best work for that. Let's take another requirement we talk about a lot, which is with power. I'm sure we have heard, and we'll also talk about it tomorrow, but the first few projects in US that have taken off with DOE loan program have been also with the power industry, right? Why have they been viable, or what are the unique requirements that have been met to make it happen? Well, for power, while you're looking at intermittency of the solar and wind, you need hydrogen to be made and stored and available on a continuous basis to be fed to the turbine. So you really benefit a lot from geological storage, right? So that becomes a unique requirement. Most of power projects will be, obviously, greenfield. You also need special turbines that work with that end use case. So the process has to be integrated throughout the value chain, right? And then it has to be future ready. Initial projects will use a mix of natural gas and hydrogen, and the intent is to continue reducing emissions by adding more hydrogen. So you also have to plan these projects thinking in mind where they go in the next decade or two or more, right? These assets have a longer lifeline. So this is just to sort of give you a flavor on how every sector is unique, every project is unique, and so it needs unique solutions. Oops. Okay, here's an overview of how we are tackling this market. Let's talk about blue hydrogen. So for this, what we have done is taken what we call our building blocks, which are technologies we have developed and perfected over 5 decades and have been proven in the industry. And are running a lot of the hydrogen capacity in the world today. We have taken those building blocks and then tailored the solution by using combinations and levels of those building blocks, right? To give you more of a flavor for the technologies. For reforming, primarily, you will use either steam methane reforming or autothermal reforming. We have developed both of these solutions, and they fit unique requirements. Steam methane reforming will probably be for existing assets, best suited. It will also fit well with small, medium scale projects. There are 2 CO2 streams that happen with steam methane reforming. One is pre-combustion, one is post-combustion flue gas. So carbon capture is possible, but not 99% possible, right? So there is some level of losses, some level of efficiencies that are very different. On the other hand, ATR, which is autothermal reforming, uses oxygen as a reactant, and so you end up with only one carbon stream. There's a lot of oxygen, so you need a lot of electricity. So your OpEx and CapEx are very different for ATR and SMR, right? So hopefully this gives you an idea on, even within reforming technologies, there's a lot to uncover and figure out to best serve the project. On top of this is what we call our performance improvement technologies, which you see on the bottom 3 blocks. These can be used either with SMR or ATR or just standalone in any retrofit project. What it does is either use heat integration, look more into the steam exhaust. It's essentially a proprietary design that will further reduce emissions by improving the efficiency of the system. So we use these proven building blocks and then tailor-made solution based on these, which are unique and best fitted to provide project and performance certainties, to also have best possible cost. And then we are taking a modularized approach towards executing these projects. So there is, again, de-risking on every level possible. Okay, let's also look at green hydrogen, and I want to share how we at Technip Energies are tackling this. So green hydrogen is unique. It brings 2 worlds together, those of electrons and those of molecules, which also means it brings 2 different levels of expertise together. The way we have worked is partnered with electrolyzer OEMs to best integrate a new system, which is value engineered for best efficiency, has a compact design, and is modularized. This again enables us to give the best performance as well as cost for hydrogen. One more thing I will touch upon is the power to X solutions, right? So hydrogen is very good with its energy intensity, but when it comes to volume, it would take 4 times more space, at least, to store the same amount of energy as compared to natural gas. While transporting hydrogen through pipelines, is okay. Using it for transportation applications is also okay. When you're looking at some of the more complicated applications and looking into large-scale transportation of hydrogen, say across the ocean, you have to change it into the derivative, right? So when we execute on these projects, of the 80 references, I would say we have references with not just hydrogen, but with ammonia, with methanol, with e-fuels, with liquid oxide hydrogen carrier, and a few more, right? So the diversity is also with how we post-treat the molecule and make it into a usable form which can be transported and used and stored as required. So with that, I shared a little bit on what the market needs, how diverse those needs are, and how unique those solutions have to be to best fit the client needs, right? I want to touch upon what it truly takes to make it happen, right? We are a company which has a 65-year of reputation that has been held and built on executing on projects to a level of process guarantees and performance guarantees, right? Which have a huge financial implication. How do we do that? With our people. Our workforce for today is a diverse set across 34 countries. They work together on all these different projects. They have a very diverse skill set. And we at Technip believe that the future, the energy transition, the decarbonization is something we will be a part of, we will be leaders of. And so we are ensuring that our workforce of today is also leading efforts in innovation, in delivery, in execution. We do have internally a future-ready program, which is conducted through our corporate university called Technip University, where we make sure that everybody at different levels, from different backgrounds and expertise, gets access to training to be able to meet the need of the future. And then we have the workforce of tomorrow. I see we have, I feel, some of them present right here at UT. We hire quite a bit. We come here every year for our career fair. We have several interns, several graduate engineers from the university. And it has been such an amazing experience. I can share this from my own first-hand experience and from conversations with colleagues that this generation, this workforce of tomorrow is truly inspiring. You've grown in a digital environment. Your adaptability to learn, to fearlessly innovate for tomorrow and to disrupt is amazing and inspires us every day. And then personally, what excites me and impresses me, I guess, the most is the kindness, the compassion, the sense of purpose. So I feel with the workforce of today and with the workforce of tomorrow, we here at Technip and across the world, I guess, through our collaborations with universities, with startups, with government agencies, will continue to innovate and solve the problems of tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, I do want to mention this is a QR code for our career site. I would encourage students to apply to it. We have internship opportunities open. We also have some job positions open, and we'd love to also see you at Career Day here in the university.
There we go. So in terms of workforce training, I guess if you compare the way it's done or the way your company does in the US, say, to Europe, are there any differences that you are noticeable or anything you would like to comment on?
I would say the training is pretty much available to everybody. I do feel the exposure, varies obviously with geography. We here at the Gulf Coast, I feel have, the privilege to know and have the expertise with a lot of existing hydrogen projects, right? So again, in Claremont, we are more focused on hydrogen as well. In Boston, there's also a lot of focus on sustainable chemistry, right? So our center, and then, in Europe, we also have similar centers of excellence, right? So I think a lot of the training and innovation both tie back to the needs of the industry, which to some extent vary from geography to geography, right? And part of it is just because of the exposure.
Thank you. Just quickly, you mentioned quite a number of projects you're working on. Are these more technology development projects? Do you pilot or commercialize? Can you give us some more details on these projects?
So, in some sense, right, we are also a technology integrator, and we have multiple partnerships across the board, as well as our own internally developed proprietary equipment, right? So it's a mix of both. We have a very broad approach to work on this, and for specific projects, I can give examples, but the TPR, for example, is our own proprietary equipment. ATR has been developed in partnership with another company. Same thing with the derivatives. There are partnerships with several companies. Electrolyzer, our initial product has been made with a partnership with John Cockrell. And then we bring the expertise on the balance of plant with the gas handling and derivatives. So yeah, it's a broad set of partnerships as well as internal technologies and equipment.
Thank you.
Parul Dhall with the Lorette Group. 2 questions. So are you currently executing projects here in Texas? And second questions, could you elaborate about the hydrogen uptake situation?
Offtake, okay. Are we executing on projects in Texas? Well, this part is in the public domain, but we've worked on the FEED for ExxonMobil's landmark, I guess, largest low-carbon hydrogen project, 1 million scuffs, I understand. So it's a large project which has gone through the FEED stage. So that's one example. And then your second question was?
What is your view on the hydrogen offtake currently in the US?
So from, it's again in the public domain. Most of the initial projects that have come about with hydrogen, I think it's definitely more than a dozen, right, that have been at least announced here in the Gulf Coast. They are very focused on export as offtake. We are also hearing about that trend in Canada, blue and green hydrogen. So the offtakes are, primarily with Asia, South Korea, Japan, right, as is available again in the news. And then I understand Europe is also looking at hydrogen. One thing we can all be proud of is we are in the most incentivized country for hydrogen production if it's low carbon. Right? Everybody wants to work here. Everybody wants to work in Texas. Everybody is looking at as how do we use the expertise of the most incentivized country with the most infrastructure, be it CO2 sequestration, be it geological storage, be it our ports that have been the cornerstone of energy export for decades, right? So while that is good news, that is also a challenge in sense that local use and US decarbonization has not benefited as much, but I feel that initial projects with export are at least, getting steel in the ground. And then with time, as there is more scale, as there is more, demand incentives, which is very much being talked about, right? Some states have also put forward some announcements on demand incentives, which helps the off-takers, right? With that, I feel, it will expand more in the country.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, like your green hydrogen and Power-to-X 80+ references, what's the stage of those projects? Like, is it kind of funded by the government or the pilot scale, demonstration scale, or is it at the stage where you can really commercialize and make any profit from that project?
So a lot of those with green hydrogen have been concept studies, pre-feed studies, and then we are also now seeing more demand for feed studies, right? That is where sort of the status is. I understand there are only, there's the ACES Delta project that has been, that has reached FID, right? But besides that, there are very few projects that have gone to that stage yet. But, we are actively working with developers across sectors and across technology providers to work through the studies and take it forward to a delivery and execution stage. And this is obviously global as well. So there are partnerships that have been announced by Technip in India. We are looking into the European market as well. So it's happening at a global level. It's just it's very dependent on the economics. In US, one thing that has slowed FID down is also the lack of clarity on 45V. I think a lot of developers are waiting on that. There are other countries like India, right, where, and I know this because I follow the economy over there quite a bit, but they have incentives which are, embedded in the government policies for decades, right? For example, a green electron does not pay a transmission charge in the grid. That has a huge impact on the cost of green hydrogen, right? So when countries are not as dependent on new policies to take off, it's easier for the market to move forward quickly, right? So it's a lot of factors that is preventing or making things progress at different scales around the world.
Thank you, Ms. Dhall, for your presentation. From the perspective of the economic transportation of hydrogen, do you see a role for conversion into ammonia as a way of cost-effectively moving large quantities of hydrogen around the world?
Absolutely. For the perspective of, from the perspective of just transportation, yes, ammonia has been the molecule of choice. A lot also depends on the end use, right? For example, if you're making methanol for green shipping using green hydrogen, then you would probably, transform all the way to methanol and then ship the methanol on a methanol tanker, right? If you're looking at green hydrogen for, eSAF, that would also be the case, right? So for just the sake of, transportation and conversion back, it's ammonia and LOHC. And then for the sake of end use, it could be a host of different fuels for marine, for transportation, for, air transportation and whatnot.
Thank you very much. I was going to circle back to workforce a little bit with these next couple of questions. They're very much related, but when thinking about the tax credit, I know apprenticeship and workforce development is a big part of that. I would like to understand how you and your company are considering that and making sure that that's part of it, and I don't know, any considerations around that. And then the second part of that is, especially around the hubs, is making sure a lot of the benefits go back to the local community. So what are you doing on the workforce side to try to ensure that the local communities are getting trained up to cover these jobs, and you're not just importing in all the talent or the know-how? Thanks.
Thank you. So as an engineering and technology company, with a stellar record for project execution, we focus on the execution side from our engineers right here in Houston, right? They are the ones who do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to project execution for US. On the hubs, I think, and the 45V, we have had several conversations, right? I think in the industry, from developers, operators, public sector, where there are requirements that 45V, mandates. I think a lot is waiting to figure out from, the final rules, which, we hear will come out this year, right? And I'm sure that most developers and operators will work to comply with those. I can't share details on specific projects or conversations, but I think the general feel we all agree, I think, is everybody is holding their breath for 45V clarifications, and be it for FID or designing the other details of the project. Thank you.